Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Belle again. So today, we're going to talk about NPR and PBS as Trump closes the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So, at Trump's direction, Republicans in Congress zeroed out funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. On the 1st of August, CPB announced that they will begin winding down operations and closing. In a release, it said, quote, "The Corporation for Public Broadcasting announced today that it will begin an orderly wind-down of its operations, following the passage of a federal rescissions package and the release of the Senate Appropriations Committee's FY 2026 Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and Related Agencies Appropriations Bill, which excludes funding for CPB for the first time in more than 5 decades. For nearly 60 years, CPB has carried out its congressional mission to build and sustain a trusted public media system that informs, educates, and serves communities across the country. Through partnerships with local stations and producers, CPB has supported educational content, locally relevant journalism, emergency communications, cultural programming, and essential services for Americans in every community. Now, one of the big questions arising from this news is what happens to NPR and PBS now that a source of funding has been hit. So, the first thing is to understand how the funding flowed. Funding left CPB and went to the roughly 1,500 local stations. Then, some of it flowed back up to the national offices of NPR and PBS through dues and fees. So, the damage to public broadcasting will occur in a different order than you might expect. It will first be the local stations that are hurt. While some stations in larger markets will be able to make up the shortfalls, those in smaller markets and rural, hard-to-reach areas won't get the support they need and they'll close. Yes, as has been the trend, the cuts initiated by MAGA are going to hurt communities that are predominantly MAGA first. The closures, lost jobs, and damage to local economies will almost certainly happen in red areas first, and maybe exclusively. There's a decent chance that stations in larger and medium-sized markets have to make cuts, but will be able to stay on the air. But then there's the follow-on effects. The fees and dues that were paid by the stations that close are the funds that pay to make the brands you know. With our audience, I'm guessing there are a lot of All Things Considered listeners. That's produced not by the local stations, but by the national entity. Catherine Marr, president and CEO of NPR, said, quote, "As an independent nonprofit news organization, NPR remains resolute in our pursuit of our mission, to create an informed and inspired public in partnership with our member stations. We will continue to respond to this crisis by stepping up to support locally owned, nonprofit public radio stations and local journalism across the country, working to maintain public media's promise of universal service and upholding the highest standards for independent journalism and cultural programming in service of our nation." If Trump's goal was to shut up the journalism from NPR, I think this might have the opposite effect. While his attack was incredibly damaging, it wasn't a knockout blow. He just hurt the areas that voted for him. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.